yeah, so basically you're saying Buddhism is happening in the West, and it is not uh, it is not particularly based on a deep misunderstanding of the concepts.
Yeah, I would say that. I would say that, like, to the extent that there are people who are purely enamored of the cultural trappings, they're not Buddhism, they're not Buddhists, then they're not actually engaged in Buddhism. And the same thing of the scholars. They're scholars. They're studying. Maybe they're doing translation. Maybe they're doing other things. But
Mm.
even in Buddhist tradition, um, especially in Tibet, they do have strands of that. I mean, Tibet was a Buddhist nation. There was a closest thing you would have, I think, to Plato's rule of the philosopher, was the Buddhist monks were sort of the political leaders of the country, and for for centuries, um, possibly longer. But what you have there is you have different lineages. You have, like, the Kagyu lineage is the practicing lineage. They're all about practice. You have the Gelugpa lineage, which is the Dalai Lama's lineage. They're very scholarly. They have a lot of studying, a lot of memorization of text, a lot of repetition of ideas. They will have, like, philosophical Dharma combat where, like, you have to present your truth in a certain way, and the teacher will, like, fight with you. Zen does that combat stuff too, so it's not unique to them. But the balance between practice and the forms of practice, the participatory knowing and the scholarly knowing, like, within Buddhism, there's no argument there. Within the history of Buddhism, there's no argument there. Dogen, the founder of Zen, had a whole lot of words to say about how you can't say anything with words. And that wasn't a problem. That's not inherently contradictory. You have to use words, you have to talk. But everything you say is problematic, and you have to acknowledge that too. And you're never going to get to a point where you've said everything properly enough that there are no more problems, because life is inherently full of dukkha. It's inherently unsatisfying. You cannot grasp something that will bring you satisfaction. And the secret of that is because satisfaction is your natural state. And so if you're dissatisfied, you've stepped away from it. You're holding on to something. There's too much. There's something in the way. You need to get rid of something. You need to find out what you're holding on to. You need to relax back into the natural state. And then when you're there, you go about your life. Chop wood, carry water. You solve the problem. You talk about that. You go talk to the guy about the dog. You welcome the drunken guy to sit next to you. All of that because you're coming from a place where you're not caught up in suffering.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds good. The only thing I can think of is maybe Vervaeke is talking about like a general understanding of, and I mentioned to this before the we started recording,
Mhm.
a general understanding that lay people might have of Buddhism and how that might be bad for them in some way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think
Uh,
I think you're right. I would agree with that. That because this is not this is not Vervaeke's 130 lectures on Buddhism or whatever, 13 lectures on Buddhism. It's 13 lectures on the meaning crisis, and he's doing Buddhists the favor of including Buddhism in that. And he's a Platonist. He's a classics scholar. He's a scholar of philosophy and he's trying to resurrect, as far as I understand, he's trying to resurrect Platonism as something that isn't just intellectual knowing, but is participatory knowing. It's a living. He's trying to bring life back to that tradition.
mm,
He's not the only one doing that. There's a lot of people trying to bring life back to the West, to some of the more mystical things that got lost with the switch over into just objective rational sciences.
mm,
And I greatly respect him for that. And it would make sense that in his chapter about Buddhism, he's addressing it from a very just introductory level.
mm,
But there were so many places where the way he was using Buddhist terms is sort of counter to at least the way I understand them, just to speak for myself. I don't want to speak for Buddhism in general, but the way I've grown to understand them, it seems very counter to the way they were intended.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's kind of where my critique comes